They kicked me out of my own home. But I still held the deed. I thought I was doing the right thing. I really did. Signing over our family home to Sarah felt like the most loving thing a mother could do. That house on Queen Street in Invercargill had been our haven for 30 years. Where Sarah learned to walk. Where she and her dad Mark would build sandcastles in the backyard. Where we'd spent countless Sunday roasts watching the All Blacks on the telly. But here I am now, sleeping in the garage, on a camp bed that squeaks every time I turn over. All because of him. Jake, my son-in-law. The bloke who seemed so keen on family dinners when he was courting my daughter. It was a crisp March morning when Sarah rang me, her voice bubbling with that excitement she gets when she's planning something. "Mum," she said, "Jake and I want to talk to you about something really important." And there was something in her tone that made me put down my cup of tea and really listen. They came over that Saturday afternoon. Jake with his usual polite nod and Sarah practically bouncing on her heels. "Mum," Sarah began, fidgeting with her hands like she did as a kid, "we've been looking at houses, but the mortgage rates are absolutely mental right now." I could see where this was heading. "You know how Dad always wanted this house to stay in the family," she continued. And that's when Jake chimed in with his smooth salesman voice. "What Sarah's trying to say is, we were wondering if you'd consider transferring the house to us. Officially." He smiled that smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Nothing would change, of course. You'd still live here. It's just a bit of paperwork, really." My heart did that thing it does when you're about to make a life-changing decision. I looked around at my lounge, at the worn leather couch where Mark used to watch rugby, at the family photos on the mantelpiece. And I thought about Sarah's future. About the grandkids she and Jake were planning. About how this house had always been meant for the next generation. "Let me talk to our solicitor," I said. And I could see the relief in Sarah's eyes. And something else in Jake's. Something that looked like victory. But I pushed that thought away. This was my daughter. My flesh and blood. The solicitor, old Don Henderson down on Tay Street, had his doubts. "Margaret," he said, peering over his reading glasses, "once you sign this over, it's not easily undone." "Are you absolutely certain?" But I was. Or thought I was. I signed those papers with a mix of pride and nerves. Thinking I was securing my daughter's future. The first few weeks were lovely. Really lovely. We'd have dinner together most nights. Jake would ask about my day. Sarah would show me photos of homes they'd eventually like to buy. It felt like we were building something. A proper family unit. But then the little things started. First it was Jake's work schedule. "Marg," he'd say, always shortening my name without asking, "I need the house a bit quieter after 6 p.m. Conference calls with Sydney, you understand." So I'd turn down Coronation Street, or head to my room early. Then came the diet rules. "We're eating clean now, Marg. Might be good for you too." Suddenly my weekly shop wasn't good enough. My biscuit tin disappeared. My wine rack was moved to the garage to make room for their smoothie maker. But the real shift happened one Sunday. It was the final of the Super Rugby, and I'd invited my sister Joan over. We were settled in with a cuppa when Jake walked in with his mates. 3 burly lads with loud voices and beer breath. "Oh," Jake said, looking pointedly at Joan and me, "I thought you'd be in your room, Marg." The boys and I need the big screen for the game. I felt something inside me shrink. In my own lounge room, where Mark and I had watched countless games, where we'd celebrated Sarah's 21st, I was being asked to move aside. And Sarah, my Sarah, was in the kitchen pretending she hadn't heard. That night, I lay awake listening to their muffled voices through the thin walls. Temporary situation. Aged care facilities. Need to think about our future. And I realized with a cold certainty that I'd become a problem to be solved. Not a mother to be cherished. The next Friday, Jake came home early. I was watching my afternoon show when he walked in. Marg, we need to have a yarn. He sat down across from me. Not beside me anymore. The thing is, he began, Sarah and I are thinking about starting a family soon. My heart leapt. Grandchildren. Finally. But then. And we'll need your room for the nursery, he continued, matter-of-factly. But don't worry. We've got it all sorted. The garage is actually quite spacious. We'll get a proper heater in there. Maybe a small kitchenette. You'll have your own space. I couldn't speak. The words just wouldn't come. My room. The one Mark and I had shared for 3 decades. With the window that looks out onto the roses he planted. Becoming a nursery. And me out in the garage like old furniture that's too good to throw away, but too inconvenient to keep inside. It's only temporary, Sarah said when she got home that night. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. Just until we figure something out. Temporary. Such a flexible word, isn't it? I didn't fight it. God help me, I didn't fight it. I packed my things quietly. My photos of Mark. My books. My knitting. And I moved into that cold garage. Among the cobwebs and Jeff's old fishing gear. In a house that was legally no longer mine. Those winter nights in Auckland are one thing. But in Southland, they are something else entirely. Even with the little heater Jake bought. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., cold and disoriented. And for a moment, I'd forget where I was. Until the reality crashed back in. During the days, when they were at work, I'd sneak back into the main house. Make myself a proper cup of tea. Use the bathroom without feeling like an intruder. Sit in my old chair by the window. Just for a few minutes. Before they came home and I had to disappear again. It was on one of those afternoons, while I was looking for an extra blanket in an old trunk, that I found it. An envelope tucked behind some Christmas decorations. With Don Henderson's letterhead. The words "Copy for your records" scrawled across the top. My hands shook as I opened it. The transfer of title. Dated but something wasn't right. Subject to registration with Land Information New Zealand. And underneath, in smaller print. Transfer not yet complete pending official processing. I drove to Don's office the next morning. First time I'd driven anywhere in weeks. Margaret, he said when he saw the papers, thank goodness you kept this. The transfer was never finalized. There were delays at Lynn's. The house is still in your name. I sat there in his office. This small room that smelled of old law books and instant coffee. And something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not even relief. But something harder. Something like recognition. Of my own worth. of what I'd allowed to happen. That evening, I didn't hide in the garage. I sat in the lounge room. In my chair. The one by the window. When Jake and Sarah came home, I could see the confusion in Jake's face. Marg? Everything all right? We need to talk, I said. And for the first time in months, my voice didn't shake. I placed the papers on the coffee table. There's been a misunderstanding. Jake picked up the documents. And I watched as his face changed. From confusion to understanding to something that might have been respect. Or maybe just calculation. The house, I continued, is still mine. Sarah started crying. Proper crying. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen when she wanted something as a teenager. But real, raw emotion. Mum? We thought. You thought wrong, I said gently. Both of you. And then I did something I should have done months ago. I told them exactly how I felt. About the garage. About feeling like a burden. About hearing them discuss aged care. About being invisible in my own home. Jake tried to speak. Started making excuses. It was never meant to be permanent. But I cut him off. No, I said. We're past explanations. Here's what's going to happen. I gave them a choice. Stay and treat me with the respect I deserved. Or find somewhere else to live. This house, I said, has room for all of us. But only if we live as equals. As family. The days that followed were tense. Jake was suddenly helpful. Asking if I needed anything. Offering to do the shopping. But there was awareness in his eyes. Like he was constantly recalculating the situation. Sarah, though. Sarah spent 2 nights crying in her old bedroom. The one I'd given up. On the 3rd night, she came to the garage. Yes, I was still sleeping there. But now it was my choice. My way of deciding if I wanted to share this house with them anymore. I'm sorry, Mum, she whispered. And for the first time in months, she hugged me. Really hugged me. I don't know how it got this bad. I don't know how I let us treat you like this. And in that moment, I understood that my daughter wasn't cruel. She was just lost. Trying to please a man who'd gradually convinced her that her mother was an inconvenience. That had to be managed rather than loved. It took 3 months before I moved back into my bedroom. 3 months of rebuilding trust. Of establishing boundaries. Of Jake learning that charm doesn't work when someone's already seen your true colors. But we did it. We found a new rhythm. One where my opinion mattered. Where my comfort was considered. Where Sunday dinners felt like family again rather than obligation. And when Sarah got pregnant. When she told me with tears in her eyes that they wanted to name the baby after Dad if it was a boy. I knew we'd somehow found our way back. Not to what we were. That was impossible. But to something better. Something honest. Where respect and love lived side by side. Where being a mother didn't mean sacrificing everything. Including dignity. Now, when I watch my grandson Lucas playing in the same backyard where Sarah once built sandcastles. In the house that's still mine, but feels like ours. I think about how close I came to losing everything. Not just the house. But myself. And I want every woman my age who might be watching this. Every mother who's ever been made to feel like a burden. To know that you don't have to accept that. That your worth doesn't diminish with age. That sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is draw a line in the sand and say, this far, and no further. My story isn't about revenge. It's not even really about justice. It's about reclaiming something essential. Something that should never have been up for negotiation. Your right to be treated with dignity in your own life. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if someone you love has made you feel like you're in the way rather than an integral part of the family, please know that it's never too late to change the narrative. The hardest part isn't standing up for yourself. It's believing you deserve to. But you do. We all do. Leave a comment if this story resonated with you. Share it with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone. And tell me what kind of comeback story you'd like to hear next. Because here's the truth. Every family has its struggles. Every generation has its blind spots. But respect, genuine, heartfelt respect, that's non-negotiable. Until next time. Luca Mackin.